The days stretched endlessly for Chinedu ever since Muna left the village. He sat in his blacksmith workshop, tools untouched, his spirit drained as if life itself had abandoned him. No sound of hammer on anvil echoed from his once busy forge. He was a shadow of himself, and not even Amaka's soft words or warm presence could ignite the spark he had lost. Amaka, his devoted companion, had watched him crumble over the past 7 months. She tried everything, meals prepared with care, tender conversations under the moonlight, and even quiet moments where she simply sat with him. But nothing worked. Chinedu remained a prisoner of his sorrow, trapped in a grief she partly understood. One fateful evening, as the setting sun cast golden rays over the village, Amaka's patience finally broke. Her voice, trembling with frustration and pain, filled the small hut. "I'm sick and tired of this," she cried. "I have given you everything, Chinedu. Love, care, and attention. Yet you still refuse to open your heart to me. Ever since Muna left the village, you've been like this. Lifeless. 7 months, Chinedu. 7 months and still you cling to his memory. What is it between the two of you? Because this isn't just friendship, is it?" Her words hung in the air, heavy with accusation and longing. Tears streamed down her face as she searched his for answers. But Chinedu didn't respond. He sat motionless, his gaze fixed on the floor. Finally, he erupted. "I love him," he screamed, his voice cracking with anguish. "I love Muna." The confession tore free like a dam breaking. Tears rolled down his face, and his body trembled as he fell to his knees. I've tried so hard to hide it, Amaka. I've buried it deep, telling myself it wasn't possible. I stayed here with you, sacrificing everything I felt for him. Because I thought it was the right thing to do, because I thought loving him was wrong. And now I've lost him, the one person I've ever truly loved. He sobbed, his voice breaking into whispers. I may never see him again. Amaka knelt beside him, her own heart breaking. She gently wiped his tears, her hand trembling as it touched his face. It's not your fault, Chinedu. You did what you thought was best. You tried to be strong for everyone. But seeing you like this broken, it tears me apart. I wish I had seen the truth earlier. I would have let you go with him. Her words were soft but resolute. I promise you this, Muna will come back for you. Chinedu looked up at her, his tear-streaked face full of desperation and disbelief. How? It's been over 7 months. How could he still care? Amaka placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, her eyes glistening with tears. I saw the way he looked at you when he was leaving, Chinedu. He wept for you. That kind of love doesn't disappear. He will return, you'll see. For the first time in months, Chinedu felt a flicker of hope. Her words were like a balm to his wounded heart, and he embraced her tightly, whispering, "Thank you." But as Amaka held him, her own tears fell silently. Her heart was shattering. The man she loved, the man she had devoted herself to, did not belong to her. He belonged to someone else, and that someone is a man. Amaka pulled away slightly, her hands cradling Chinedu's face. "Whatever decision you make, I will stand by you," she said with a tremulous smile. Sometimes, love means letting go. Chinedu saw the pain in her eyes and felt a wave of guilt. He had wanted to spare her this heartbreak, but there was no escaping it now. "Amaka," he whispered, "I never meant to hurt you." She shook her head, silencing him. "You deserve to be happy, Chinedu. That's all that matters." But deep within, as night fell over the village, Amaka silently wrestled with her own heartbreak. Every morning, Chinedu would sit by the shore, his heart weighed down by hope and longing, waiting for Muna to return. It had been 2 long years since Muna left the village, yet Chinedu's daily visits to the beach remained a constant ritual. On one such morning, as he made his way to the beach, a young boy ran towards him, breathless and urgent. "Chinedu, Chief Okafor, Amaka's father, wants to see you." Chinedu hesitated for a moment, his mind racing. Why would Chief Okafor summon him so early in the day? Brushing off his unease, he turned and walked towards the chief's compound. As he approached, he saw Chief Okafor seated outside his hut, his posture one of quiet expectation. "Ah, Chinedu," the chief called out. "Come closer, Amaka. Come out, your friend is here." Chinedu stepped forward cautiously, bowing his head in greeting. "Good morning, Chief," he said. "Welcome, my son. Have a seat," Chief Okafor said, gesturing to a stool. "How are you, and how is your work?" "I'm fine, Chief. Thank you," Chinedu replied, his voice steady despite the tension building within him. The chief leaned forward, his eyes sharp with scrutiny. "There are rumors flying around the village, my son, and as a father, I must address them. It has been 3 years since you and my daughter have been close, yet you have not asked for her hand in marriage. She has rejected all other suitors because of you, Chinedu. So, I must know, what are your intentions toward my daughter?" Amaka appeared in the doorway, her face stiff with apprehension. She glanced at Chinedu, her heart praying he doesn't tell his father the truth. Chinedu, however, remained still, his heart sinking further with every word. But Chief Okafor was not finished. "There is more," he said, his voice dropping. "The villagers have been whispering about your visits to the beach. They say you were closer to your friend Muna than was proper. Tell me, Chinedu, what is the truth? Were you in love with Muna before he left? Are you still?" The air grew thick with silence. Amaka's breath hitched as she cast a frantic glance between her father and Chinedu. Chinedu, on the other hand, felt his resolve crumble under the weight of the chief's questions. He could deny it again, as he had done countless times before, or he could speak the truth, knowing full well the consequences in a village where such love was not just forbidden, but condemned. "Yes, Chief, it's true. I loved Muna. I regret not telling him when I had the chance." Amaka's hands flew to her mouth, and Chief Okafor staggered to his feet, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Abomination!" the chief bellowed, clutching his head with both hands. "Papa, lower your voice," Amaka pleaded, her voice breaking. Tears streamed down her face as she rushed toward her father. "Do you want the entire village to hear?" Chief Okafor said nothing. Shaking his head in silent dismay, he retreated into his hut, his steps heavy with disappointment. Amaka turned to Chinedu, her expression a storm of grief and anger. "Why?" she demanded, running after him as he began to walk away. "Why would you say that? Don't you realize what you've done? If this gets to the king, it could mean banishment. Or worse." Chinedu stopped abruptly and turned to face her, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Do you think I don't know that? But how long must I live in silence? How long must I pretend? I lost Muna, the only person who ever accepted me as I am. I can't live like this anymore." The slap came before he could finish his sentence, sharp and stinging. Amaka's hand trembled as she withdrew it, her voice trembling with fury. "You're selfish, Chinedu. How dare you say Muna was the only one who accepted you? Have I not stood by you? Have I not rejected every suitor for your sake? Even after learning your secret, I stayed. And this is how you repay me?" Tears streamed down her face as she pounded her fists against his chest, her words choking with sorrow. "I hate you, Chinedu. I hate you for throwing everything away. Don't ever come near me again." Chinedu stood motionless, her words cutting deeper than he thought possible. He opened his mouth to speak, but closed it again, realizing there was nothing he could say. Silent and broken, he turned and walked away, tears blurring his vision. For days, neither Chinedu nor Amaka ventured near each other. Both wrestled with the pain of betrayal, disappointment, and love, twisted now into something neither could fully understand. Yet the whispers in the village only grew louder, and the shadow of Chinedu's confession loomed ever larger. In the stillness of the morning, Amaka heard hushed voices outside her father's hut. Her heart quickened when she recognized the speaker. Her father, Chief Okafor, conversing in grave tones with the king's executioner. Suspicion pricked her mind as she stepped outside. "Papa," she called, her voice tentative. "What is this about?" Chief Okafor turned, his expression unreadable. But the weight of his words fell like a heavy stone. "The king demanded I confirm the rumors about Chinedu. You were there when the truth came to light. Now he must pay for his sin." Amaka froze, her stomach twisting. "Sin?" she echoed, her voice trembling. "You mean his love for another man?" Her father's face hardened. "Yes, it is an abomination, Amaka. I warned you about him, but you refused to listen. This is the consequence of your defiance." Tears welled in Amaka's eyes. "Papa, how could you?" she cried. "I begged you never to tell the king. You said you accepted Chinedu, even called him a son. How could you betray him?" "I never accepted him," Chief Okafor growled. "And he will never be my son. I saw the danger in that boy from the beginning, but you wouldn't heed my warnings. And now you defend him even after knowing what he truly is?" "Because I love him, Papa." Amaka's voice cracked, raw with emotion. "I love him enough to let him be who he is, to understand his heart. If anything happens to him because of you, I will never forgive you. You'll cease to be my father." Chief Okafor staggered, stunned by her words. You would choose him over your own father? Spare me your pretense, Papa, Amaka retorted bitterly. Do you think I don't know about your plans to marry me off to Chief Agwu's son? This is not about Chinedu, it's about controlling me. He averted his gaze, guilt etched across his face. Amaka stepped closer, her voice steely. Why is the king's executioner here? Tell me the truth. Chief Okafor sighed deeply, his resolve breaking. The king has ordered Chinedu's execution. Even now, the warriors are probably heading toward the beach. Amaka's heart dropped. Without a word, she spun and bolted toward the beach. Come back here, Amaka, her father bellowed after her. If you go after him, I will disown you. But Amaka didn't look back. Her legs carried her faster than she thought possible. The sound of her heartbeat drowned out her father's voice as she neared the shore. From a distance, she saw the king's warriors marching, their spears glinting in the sun. Desperately, she began shouting, Chinedu, Chinedu. Her voice sliced through the air, and soon, a figure emerged in the distance, running toward her, Amaka. Chinedu's voice was filled with concern. As he reached her, his hands gripped her shoulders. What's wrong? You must leave, Amaka panted, her chest heaving. The king's warriors are after you. They'll kill you, Chinedu. You can't go back to the village. You must escape. Chinedu's face clouded with confusion and fear. Escape? But how? The village is surrounded by the sea. There's no way out. Except through the village or through the sea. Amaka's eyes darted toward the vast waters. Then she saw it, a vessel cutting through the waves. Hope ignited within her. Look, she exclaimed, pointing. It's Muna. Without hesitation, Amaka ran to the shore, waving her red scarf high in the air. Muna, she shouted, her voice trembling with urgency. The vessel glided closer, and a tall figure leapt down as it touched the sand. Muna, they are under my protection now, Muna declared, his voice firm as the warriors reached the shoreline. Your king's authority ends here. This is my ship and my sea. Here I rule. Amaka's father arrived, his face flushed with anger and desperation. Amaka, come down now. But Amaka stood resolute. I will only leave if Muna and Chinedu don't want me aboard. She turned to Muna, her eyes pleading. Muna nodded. You're welcome, if that's your choice. Tears glistened in Amaka's eyes as she faced her father. Papa, I need to go. I never belonged in this village. Mama is gone, and you don't need me anymore. Please let me go. Chief Okafor's shoulders slumped in defeat. He stepped forward and clasped her hands. Then you must go now. It won't be long before word gets to the king, and he sends more warriors. You have my blessings, my child. And don't forget to visit when you can. Yes, I will, Papa, Amaka replied with a smile. Turning to Chinedu, he added solemnly, protect her, as she has protected you today. Chinedu nodded, his jaw tight with determination. As the ship pulled away from the shore, the wind carried Chief Okafor's final words, Be safe, my daughter. The horizon loomed vast and uncertain, the sea stretching endlessly ahead as Amaka and Chinedu faced the unknown together. As the ship ascended higher into the sky, Amaka clutched the railing, her heart pounding in terror. She had always been afraid of heights, and now the ground seemed like a distant memory. Muna, noticing her trembling, moved closer and gently pulled her into his arms. His voice, calm and reassuring, broke through her panic. Don't be afraid, he said, his tone warm and protective. You are my responsibility now. Amaka's breathing slowed as his words sank in. She glanced up at him, her fear momentarily replaced by a flicker of hope. Muna then turned to Chinedu, who stood a few steps away, his eyes darting nervously between them. Come, Chinedu, Muna called, extending an arm. Chinedu hesitated but eventually stepped forward, allowing himself to be drawn into the embrace. As the three of them stood together, Amaka's face brightened, as though the weight of her fear had lifted. You came just in time to rescue Chinedu, she said softly, a hint of awe in her voice. Muna smiled, his expression knowing. Have you forgotten? I've saved you both before in a situation not too different from this. I guess you both always land in trouble when I'm not around, Muna said with a smile. Ah, that's true, Amaka said, nodding. I almost forgot you're a magician, but this also means you could have come sooner and that you already knew what Chinedu was going through. Muna chuckled but said nothing, his silence teasing. Amaka smirked and added playfully, Well, either way, Chinedu really missed you, and now I see how much you mean to him. Don't worry, I won't get in the way of your love. Chinedu's cheeks flushed, and he quickly looked away, his shyness betraying him. While he found it difficult to maintain eye contact with Muna, Amaka was far more at ease. She chattered freely with Muna, her laughter filling the cool night air as the ship glided through the sky. The three of them sat on the deck under a canopy of stars. The heavens above were breathtaking, a cascade of twinkling lights reflected in their wide eyes. Muna leaned back, his face illuminated by the faint glow of the moon, and began recounting his adventures. "I discovered a beautiful island," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "It's unlike anything you've ever seen. An island of gold. That's where we're heading." His wide smile was infectious, and Amaka and Chinedu couldn't help but smile along with him. Amaka peppered him with questions about his voyages, her curiosity endless, while Chinedu remained mostly quiet. He sat nearby, his gaze fixed on Muna, admiration shining in his eyes. Though he didn't speak much, his heart was full, and Muna seemed to understand his unspoken emotions. Whenever their eyes met, Muna's knowing smile would deepen, and Chinedu's heart would race. Yet despite Amaka's animated conversation with Muna, Chinedu felt no jealousy. Instead, he was happy that the two people he cared about most in the world were getting along so well. As the ship floated onward through the night, Amaka's laughter and stories carried into the stars. As the ship glided smoothly through the shimmering waters, Muna stood at the helm, the compass in his hand glinting in the sunlight. The needle danced over the map, guiding them closer to the mythical island he had spoken of. Amaka and Chinedu leaned over the side of the ship, their excitement building as they finally caught sight of land, a lush, verdant silhouette against the horizon. "Look," Amaka exclaimed, pointing eagerly. "Is that it?" Muna nodded, a proud smile spreading across his face. "Yes, I named her Elysia, the Island of Dreams." As they drew closer, the island revealed itself in all its breathtaking glory. Tall palm trees swayed gently in a soft breeze. Brightly colored flowers carpeted the ground, painting the landscape with shades of fuchsia, gold, and indigo. Birds with vibrant plumage flitted about, their melodic songs harmonizing with the gentle sound of lapping waves. When the ship docked and they disembarked, Amaka and Chinedu took it all in, their senses overwhelmed by the beauty surrounding them. "It's like a real-life paradise," Amaka whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. Muna led the way through the lush foliage. A narrow path wound through towering grasses and colorful bushes, which seemed to bloom and flourish in every shade imaginable. As they walked, the aroma of sweet fruits and wildflowers filled the air, each step creating a sense of euphoria. Suddenly, they came upon a magnificent treehouse, nestled high among the branches of the largest tree they had ever seen. Its wooden structure spiraled around the trunk, ladders weaving in and out, and balconies adorned with tropical vines and flowers spilling over the edges. "Whoa!" Chinedu gasped, adrenaline coursing through him, as he could no longer hide his excitement. "How did you build something so magnificent, all by yourself, stranded in an island?" Muna turned to him, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "You're forgetting again that I have magic. It took me 2 years to construct this," he replied, a warm chuckle escaping his lips. "And of course, I had the help of my island pals." With a gesture of his hand, Muna opened a large wooden door at the base of the treehouse, revealing a verse wonder at his backyard. To their astonishment, inside was a lively world of animals. Elephants foraging peacefully in one corner, a herd of buffaloes resting in the shade, and gracefully strutting ostriches wandering about playfully. "Is this real?" Amaka asked, eyes wide. "How did you manage to bring all of them here?" "Together, we've created our own little community," Muna explained, a sense of pride in his voice. "Each animal has its purpose, from helping me fetch water to maintaining the balance of our ecosystem. And they help me in building too. Like the elephant, for instance, helps to run the irrigation system from the dam I created from a fresh water stream just at the other side of the mountain." Muna couldn't stop talking because he has been waiting for a day when he could share his inventions with the world, and it meant a lot to him to share it with the two people he cared about. "The dam also powers the cooling system," he said, pointing his hands towards a large fan attached to the back of the treehouse. "I believe the dam can do more than irrigation, but I'm working on it, though," he said. Pride filled his words as he showed them around. As they stepped further, Amaka noticed the adjacent area was a vibrant farm, bursting with ripe vegetables and tropical fruits. This is incredible, Muna. You've cultivated all this? Amaka asked, clearly impressed. Nature has its own rhythm, and if you listen closely, it guides you, Muna replied, as he picked a ripe mango from a nearby tree, handing it to Amaka. It's about working with the land and showing respect to all creatures. Amaka took a bite of the mango, the sweet juices bursting on her tongue, and couldn't help but smile. This is the best mango I've ever tasted, and besides the fertile land, there are plenty of gold here too. Enough gold that could make every single person in a kingdom wealthy, but I must want there are wild animals here too. Amaka's eyes widened in fear, but Muna tapped her shoulder. Don't worry, I cast a spell that keeps them off. Muna continued with his speech. I also believe that some white sailors had attempted to come to this island. That's where I got this device from the shipwreck at the west side of the island. Muna held up a compass. This device can read any location. Both Amaka and Chinedu stared at the device. It seemed anything was possible. With the sun setting over the horizon, painting the sky in pinks and golds, Amaka leaned on the wooden deck of the treehouse, taking a moment to soak it all in. Days passed in the paradise of Elysia, and Amaka found every moment together with Muna filled with laughter and deep conversations. They would often sit at the edge of the treehouse, gazing at the stars, sharing stories about their lives before arriving on the island. The connection between them grew stronger, with Amaka feeling a sense of freedom and comfort in Muna's presence that she hadn't known before. Chinedu, however, found himself in a whirlwind of confusion. The bond between Amaka and Muna was unmistakable, and while he was sincerely happy for them, he couldn't shake a nagging curiosity. Why are they so close? He often wondered. It wasn't jealousy that gnawed at him. It was more like a puzzle he couldn't quite fit together. Muna had once mentioned something about not being a biological man, and the threads of doubt began to weave together in his mind. Could it be that Muna was actually a woman all along? The thought sparked in him like a dim light that refused to fully illuminate the room. He began to watch them closely, trying to decipher the nuances of their interactions, the way Amaka's laughter lit up whenever Muna spoke, the soft, gentle touches they exchanged. One cool afternoon, as Chinedu tended to the elephants, Muna decided it was time to clarify things once and for all. He called out for Amaka to join him in the bathroom, a cozy space decked out. "Come on, Amaka," Muna called out playfully, her voice echoing against the walls. Amaka hesitated for a moment, the shyness of such an invitation gnawing at her, but the allure of Muna's voice pulled her in. She felt so free with him that the embarrassment quickly faded. Out of curiosity, she made her way to the door and stepped inside. As she entered, her eyes widened in shock. Muna, standing under a cascade of water, was not the man she had believed him to be. The curves of her body were accentuated by the water glistening over her skin, shimmering like the jewels of the sea. Amaka's mind raced, completing the pieces of the puzzle so carefully woven. "You're a woman," she exclaimed, her voice a mixture of joy and surprise. Muna turned to Amaka, her smile genuine and warm. "Yes, I am," she said. Emboldened by the moment, Amaka ran and wrapped her arms tightly around Muna, excitement bubbling within her. "No wonder I felt such a free spirit around you. But why didn't you tell Chinedu? It would have saved him so much trouble." Muna sighed gently. "I know, but things happened so quickly. I didn't want to put him in a position where he would have to choose between you and me. He cares about you deeply, and I didn't think he was ready for the truth. I can't wait until he knows," Amaka said as she hugged Muna once more. Muna looked into Amaka's eyes, his voice gently. "I know you love Chinedu, but we are in our own world now and anything is possible. There's no one here to judge us. There's enough love for all of us to share." Just then, Chinedu, feeling a strange pull, entered the treehouse. He paused, puzzled, as he heard the chatter coming from the bathroom. Curiosity led him to push the door open, and his heart dropped at the sight before him. There stood Amaka, glowing with excitement as she held Muna in a warm embrace. "Amaka!" he stammered, his voice barely a whisper, a mix of confusion and surprise composing itself as Amaka turned to him, her eyes wide with joy. "Muna is a woman, not a man," she exclaimed, bubbling over with excitement. "How come you didn't get close enough to know this all along?" Chinedu's gaze shifted to Muna, his heart racing now. A mixture of shock and awe melded in his expression. Without thinking, he rushed forward and enveloped Muna in a warm embrace, pulling back only to look deeply into her eyes. His heart swelled with newfound understanding. Muna chuckled, a soft blush gracing her cheeks. "You can call me her now. It's just that I won't be dressing like one," she said, looking at Chinedu with sincerity. "People only assume I'm a man because of my physique, but it's hard to explain without, well, pulling off my underwear." They shared a laugh, lightheartedness weaving through the atmosphere of warmth that enveloped them. The weight that had hung over Chinedu lifted. As twilight wrapped the island in shades of purple and gold, they gathered around a crackling campfire near the base of the magnificent treehouse. The air was filled with the aroma of roasted fish sizzling on skewers over the flames. Laughter erupted frequently, punctuated by the soft sounds of the waves lapping at the shore nearby. Muna, Amaka, and Chinedu would recount their daily adventures, each tale growing more extravagant as night fell. "With roasted fish in hand, somebody pinched me," Amaka said. "But why?" Muna replied. "Because I think I'm dreaming." Amaka responded as they burst into laughter. "I'm the luckiest person in the world to have two people that I love to share this island with," Muna added. Nights turned into mornings, and the trio often found themselves frolicking at the nearby waterfall, where the sun danced on the surface of the water, casting shimmering rainbows. They splashed playfully, their laughter echoing through the lush greenery, with Muna leading daring contests to see who could hold their breath the longest underwater or launch the highest off the bank into the glistening pool below. One fine morning, Muna decided it was time to unveil one of the island's most exciting secrets. "Come with me," she urged Amaka and Chinedu, her eyes sparkling with mischief and adventure. They followed her eagerly as she led them deep into the heart of the island, winding through thick foliage and the sound of rustling leaves. Finally, they arrived at a concealed cave, its entrance cloaked by vines and blooming flowers. Muna beamed at them as she led them inside, revealing glimmering walls covered in gold and gemstones. The light danced off the precious metals, making it feel like they had stepped into a hidden treasure trove. "Look at all this," Amaka exclaimed, her eyes wide, marveling at the sight. They ran around the cavern, hands outstretched to touch the shimmering surfaces, feeling like adventurers discovering lost worlds. As they made their way back to the treehouse, their playful spirits were high, laughter ringing in the air as they bumped into each other and raced down the gentle slope. Suddenly, Muna's keen eyes caught sight of something lurking ahead. "Amaka, don't move," she yelled urgently. Amaka froze, a wave of fear washing over her as she saw a large python coiled around a nearby tree, its eyes locked onto her. Panic surged through her, and she instinctively took a step back, but Muna's steady presence was enough to ground her. With a swift wave of her hand, Muna cast a spell, and the python's gaze softened, it unfurling itself slowly, slinking away into the brush. "There, it's safe now," Muna assured them, her voice calming. Amaka, still trembling, found comfort in Muna's warm grip. "I can't believe how terrifying that was," she gasped, and Chinedu laughed, shaking his head at Amaka's fright. "You should have seen your face." "Hey, I'm not ashamed," Amaka replied, squeezing Muna's hand tightly as they walked. "I'd rather be safe with my magical friend." As they walked toward the beach, Chinedu felt a newfound cheer vibrate within him. The rhythm of laughter and playfulness had awakened his inner child, rekindling a lightness he hadn't felt in ages. Just as they reached the sandy shore, Muna's sharp eyes spotted something jutting out of the sand. "Look, a shipwreck!" Their hearts raced as they raced toward the remains of a vessel, its once proud frame now weathered and broken. Muna, a glint of determination in her eyes, began rummaging through the wreckage, convinced there were valuable relics and technologies hidden within it. "This stuff is fascinating. There must be more out there than we could ever even guess," she mused, happily pulling out odd gadgets and half-buried tools. Amaka took lead in collecting clothing and cooking wares scattered around, grinning at the discovery of peculiar pots and pans still gleaming with the ghost of their former glory alongside mismatched garments. In the midst of her search, she suddenly gasped, her voice shaking slightly. "Muna, there's someone here!" With a glance in Amaka's direction, Muna rushed over to where Amaka stood, her heart pounding in response to the urgency in Amaka's tone. There, lying among the debris, was a white man, bloodied and injured, looking as pale as the sands surrounding him. "Ghost! Ghost!" Amaka screamed, backing away in alarm. Muna quickly assessed the situation and knelt by the man's side. "It's okay, Amaka. He's not a ghost. He's just hurt." She carefully held him up. "Chinedu, give me a hand." Chinedu hesitated, looking at the man with a mix of fear and uncertainty. "He's not a ghost. He's a white man," Muna clarified. "Just like we're black, he's different. Nothing to be afraid of." Finally, finding courage in Muna's words, Chinedu approached, his heart racing with empathy. "Okay, I'll help." He hoisted the man across his shoulder, his muscles straining slightly, but with determination mixed with urgency. Together, they made their way back toward the treehouse. Chinedu's feet unsteady in the soft sand, Muna walked alongside him, whispering encouragement to the injured man, while Amaka glanced anxiously Geff. Over the next few days, Muna devoted her time to caring for Robin's wounds with a mix of herbal remedies and a bit of her enchanting magic. Muna expertly mixed poultices and salves from the flora around the island. Calendula for healing, comfrey for tissue regeneration, and a hint of lavender to soothe pain. With Amaka and Chinedu by her side, they watched in awe as Robin slowly regained his strength. His wounds healed remarkably well, and less than a week later, he was up and moving around, albeit a little unsteady at first. The once ailing stranger was now eager and curious, eager to learn the ways of this magical island. "Where do you come from?" Muna finally questioned one evening as they gathered around a small fire for dinner. Ocean waves rolled gently in the background, adding a serene ambiance to their conversation. Robin looked contemplative, the shadows dancing across his face. "I come from a land far to the west, a place known for its industriousness and pursuit of wealth," he began, his voice mixed with warmth and sincerity. "There have always been whispers of an island like no other, an island filled with gold. For generations, sailors have sought it, yet none have returned. I believe that this is the island they were looking for." Muna listened intently, her eyes narrowing as Robin spoke. "Have you seen any gold here?" Curiosity flickered in Robin's expression, but Muna could see through him. His eyes held a glimmer of mischief that set warning bells ringing in her mind. "No, we've never seen any gold," she replied calmly, her tone measured. Muna shared a knowing glance with Chinedu and Amaka, silently warning them to keep a close watch on Robin. Despite his charming demeanor and the gratefulness he expressed, she could feel an undercurrent of ambition in him that made her cautious. Robin marveled at how closely knit Muna, Amaka, and Chinedu were, and while he felt gratitude for being saved, he also couldn't shake the feeling of being an intruder in their world. They laughed together, shared stories, and engaged in playful banter that he found both captivating and slightly uncomfortable. Their bond was rich and deep, woven with experiences of friendship and unyielding support, a stark contrast to what he was used to in his own world. The hunt for an unknown treasure had led to betrayal between friends. Yet Robin was equally intrigued by Muna's inventions and magical abilities. He expressed a desire to share her talent with others of his kind back home, suggesting that the world needed to know about the genius that blossomed amidst the beauty of this island. One night, while the stars twinkled above and the others lay fast asleep, Robin succumbed to a darker curiosity. He discreetly snuck into Muna's secret stash, where she kept her map and compass hidden. The thrill of discovery pulsed through him as he took both items and made his way to the cave of gold he had seen marked out on the map. To his astonishment, he found Muna's legends to be true. The cavern glimmered with gold, making the culmination of his journey feel tantalizingly magical and dangerous at the same time. He returned before dawn, a sense of urgency propelling him forward. The next morning, Muna sensed something was off. As she gripped her compass, a tingle of uneasiness spread through her. "I've found what I was looking for," Robin announced, attempting a nonchalant air. "I think it's time I leave. My family is probably worried sick, thinking I'm dead." Muna nodded, albeit with a heavy heart. "You're free to leave," she replied slowly. "But there's one condition. You must never tell anyone about this island." A tense silence filled the air. Robin nodded earnestly. "I promise. I won't tell a soul." Yet a flicker of doubt lingered in Muna's heart. Her intuition nudged her that Robin's promises holds no truth, but she couldn't keep him longer than he wished to stay. Still, the island had its defenses, and she had to ensure they remained intact. Muna and Chinedu gathered materials and built Robin a sturdy ship, the hull crafted from the finest wood found on the island, with sails that billowed as brightly as the sun. As they finished, anticipation mixed with anxiety filled the air. On the day of his departure, Chinedu crossed his arms defiantly, a fierce look in his eyes. "This is our island, and we will defend it if there's any threat," he declared, determination punctuating his words. Robin smiled as he prepared to set sail, but Muna felt an uneasy chill linger in the air around them. As the ship unfurled its sails and began to drift away from the shore, Muna, Amaka, and Chinedu stood together, watching the horizon swathe Robin in shadows. "Remember, it's not over," Muna murmured. "We'll be ready when he returns."